Black ink isn't something I've typically reached for when it comes to ink blending, layering floral dyes. But in today's stylish card making techniques video, I'm going to show you how to add drama to this Sulfur Cosmos Crafter Flower layering die set using black ink as the primary colour for my ink blending. Hi guys, it's Jenny. Welcome back to another stylish card making techniques video. As I said, today I'm featuring the Crafter Flower Sulfur Cosmos set. This is a gorgeous layering die set and it is really easy to use. Some improvements that Altenew has made recently to its layering dies for Crafter Flower make it super easy to put them together. You can see that little arrow in the center there, that's on all of these dies, and it means that you can just easily layer them on top of each other following the direction of the arrow. I'll show you a little bit closer in a second. Now, I like to ink blend my layering flower dies, and I find the easiest way to work out what colors I'm going to use and what goes where is first off to die cut out all of the pieces. And I actually managed to fit almost all of the pieces onto one A2 size panel of Nina Solar White cardstock. I'm using the 80-pound version, and I'm just going to adhere them down with a few pieces of satin masking tape. I did have a couple of other pieces and I used a second panel for that. I'm going to be doing ink blending today with my mini blending tools, and I wanted to give you a look at the back of the Sulfur Cosmos set. Any of the Crafter Flower sets have this layering guide, and it makes it super straightforward and easy to see which piece goes first. With the addition of that arrow, and if you look closely and it's hard to see on camera, an indented number, all of these layers are numbered. So I can match up the shape with the picture on the back of the layering die set. I can match up the direction with the arrow pointing upwards, and I also can double check by making sure that I have the right numbered piece. Now, first off, I know I said I was going to be using black ink, but I'm going to add a very, very, very subtle wash of pale mauve ink. I wanted to use this color in particular because it's got this grayish tone throughout, which makes it perfectly paired with black ink. And it also adds a subtle graduation throughout the petal. I'm leaving most of the ends white, but it brings up those score lines. You can see on each of the petals there's a score line, and by adding some of this ink over the top, it makes those score lines easier to see and gives that extra dimension. Now I'm going to be using jet black crisp dye ink here, and I have a fresh blending tool. This is a mini brush. I actually got it with, I think it was a Builder Garden set. And I'm going to add some ink, daub it off onto my crafting mat first so I don't have too much, and then using very gentle circular motion, this is not sped up, I'm going to add that ink right into the center and just keep on blending and blending and blending and blending, and you can see it gradually sort of wicks out almost and blends into that pale mauve background. I'm going to do that on all of the pieces. In some cases, it's not going to be right in the center. Make a best judgment based on which way you think those pieces are going to be facing. And then for the centers, I'll add just pure black. And the leaves, which are not layering leaves, I'll add just the black ink. So I'm going to blend that up through the center of the stem and gradually fade it out towards the ends of each leaf, leaving white tips in place. To adhere my flowers together, I'm using liquid glue, and I'm just going to place it around the back of whatever piece I'm going to layer on top, on the back, around the outside of that arrow. So I'm just putting it into the center. I can then line up those two arrows, making sure they're both pointing upwards, and then just push it down. And I'm going to do the same thing for each of the layers. Because they're numbered and I can see the layering guide, I know which one goes where. And there's a couple of extra little sort of facing up pieces. They are very straightforward. You can tell where they go. And then it's just a matter of popping that center in as well. I'm going to do the same with the second flower. And if you notice, this one actually doesn't have an arrow, it has a keyhole. And that way you know if you're using the wrong piece because you don't want an arrow lined up with a keyhole, and that way you can keep those two different flowers completely separate. It's absolutely ingenious, and I'm so glad Altenew's done this with their layering flower dies. You can get much more complex looking flowers and it's still really easy to make them. And here's a quick look at the two different flowers that we just created. Now for my base, I'm using a panel of Moonrock cardstock from Altenew, and I'm going to grab my Crafters Essential scoring board and just going to add some scoring lines down one side every 1/4 inch here and there. I'm not going to go all the way in, maybe about 1/3 of the way in, just scoring down every 1/4 inch on that scoring board. And this is just going to add some subtle texture to the background. The Moonrock cardstock already has these little flecks in it that are hard to see on camera. It's sort of a very pale grey, very, very pale grey with like sort of rusticy looking bits in it. It's the only way I can really describe it. And then I'm going to go around each of the edges, just 1/4 inch in from each side to add a border. And that way I've got a nice subtle scoring pattern in the background and not too much else. I am going to add some splatters though, so I'm going to grab for my Iridescent metallic shimmer spray, and it's probably one of my favourite shimmer sprays from Altenew. It's, from one way it looks kind of pink, almost like the pale mauve, and then if you tip the card in the light it looks green. It's just really cool. It's like that shot silk kind of look, and I really love it. After the jet black and pure white and antique gold metallic shimmer ink sprays, it's probably my favourite. To add a little bit more subtle shine and sparkle onto the flowers themselves, I'm going to lay down my cloth and then give it a few spritzes as well. I'm using a cloth rather than a box because I'm actually renovating my house right now and I don't have empty boxes to hand. I've filled them all up with my stuff, so I'm grabbing a cloth because it helps catch some of the sparkle and make sure it doesn't go everywhere. And then I'm going to place the panel into my mini misty and arrange the flowers where I want them to go. I'm not adhering them at this point. And then I've grabbed for the Better Together stamp set. There's actually 2 of these. There's a Better Together 2 as well. I'm going to line up which sentiment fits where I want it to go. And this is on an area that is not scored, so I can stamp directly onto the Moonrock cardstock without any worry that it's not going to make a full impression. And I'm going to use some Obsidian Pigment Ink onto the background, which will pair perfectly with that jet black that we use for our ink blending. And then I can use some foam squares and just arrange my flowers around that sentiment. I am going to leave some hanging off the edge and I'm not going to trim it off. I spent too long making these flowers, I don't want to mess them up. And then I'm going to tuck the leaves behind. This one does not have any foam tape. I've just added a dab of glue on the end of the stem. But on the second leaf, I wanted that extra bit of dimension, so I added some very fine strips of foam tape just here and there behind the thicker leaves and let it sort of pop over the top of that flat leaf. And then to finish off, I'm going to add a couple of extra embellishments, just some very pale blue crystals that I had in my stash that I thought would pair perfectly with the flowers. Now, finishing touch, and I've been doing this a lot recently, I've added some crystal glaze over the top of the flower centers, and then when that dries, you get this gorgeous shiny black gloss flower center. Isn't it nice? Really loved how this turned out, and I feel like subconsciously I might have been channeling my inner JC, so not trying on purpose, but I think it kind of reminds me of one of his creations a little bit, albeit not quite as amazing as his. That's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed. I'd love to hear what you think. If you use black ink for your ink blending, let me know. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Altenew's YouTube channel. There are tons of amazing videos to check out. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Hello crafters, Jen here. For more tips, techniques, tutorials, and to discover which paper crafting products are right for you, subscribe to Altenew's YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the notification bell so you don't miss any videos. Thanks for watching.